Cairo, Seattle.
I don't know if I fit in up at an MMA event, Bob. You drove me up to Everett for the event. We talked to Phoenix Jones last week. We went and watched it, a World Series of Fighting event that was up there, and I don't know if I exactly blended in. I didn't have a tie on, so maybe I didn't stick out as bad.
I think that's probably a good thing you didn't blend in. I don't think any of us blended in. We had sleeves. We weren't wearing sunglasses. And as far as I know, we weren't mean-mugging anybody. So I don't think any of us blended in,
now,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. There was no mean mugging. We did get a chance to watch the card, which was actually a very good competitive card. Phoenix Jones did not fare so well. We talked to him last week. He was fighting his brother Karos, and he spent the majority of that fight on his back.
Yeah, he did in side control. It was a fairly dull fight, if we're being honest. It was really kind of a lousy fight where he was controlled for 3 rounds. There was no real damage. Carroll suffered a cut on his head. He's never really rattled. Phoenix Jones was never really rattled. It was kind of a letdown. It really was, considering the buildup and the hype and all the emotion that seemed to be attached to it, and just the idea of 2 brothers was kind of like, man, what's going to happen? Nothing really happened. It was a bit of a letdown.
One of the things that struck me, though, talking about it, is that I love talking to Phoenix, and it was a really good interview.
He's a great interview.
Yes, but it kind of shows that emotion and that sort of aggression, it takes way more than that to make a good fighter. If you're not well-rounded, what's going to happen to you is exactly what happened to Phoenix Jones, where Karos basically just controlled him the entire fight, and once he got him in a bad position, once he put Ben on his back, he really couldn't do anything. And for everybody that'll think that it's just barroom brawling, I always go back to that I think the thing that's most intriguing to me about MMA is the variety of techniques that a guy has to understand to be able to be effective. You cannot just be a striker.
No, you can't. You can't sit there and hope this right hand lands. And if it doesn't, what am I going to do? You need a plan B. You need a plan C. And you see a lot of one-dimensional fighters, but you're seeing a lot fewer of them. I think that's part of the evolution of the sport, is you're seeing more well-rounded fighters who are really pretty good at everything, as opposed to this guy's wrestling, and if he's forced to stay on his feet, he's going to get his brains beaten in. You're not seeing a lot of those one-dimensional fighters in terms of the young fighters. Some of the older fighters you can look at, even though Dan Henderson's got an incredible wrestling pedigree, all he does is walk around with that right hand cocked looking to land it. The H-bomb's coming. We all know he's going to throw it. It's just, are you going to be there when it lands? It's, so he's kind of the last of that dying breed of fighters where they really rely heavily on this one aspect of their game, and if they get put in any other area, it's going to be problematic.
Do you see who Hendu's going to fight next?
Michael Bisping.
He's going to fight Michael Bisping in England. I hate Bisping.
I know you do.
There's a couple things that I'm worried about this. First of all, it might ruin what is the image of it's my favorite knockout in UFC history. It is. There is nothing that. It's a close second is when Nick Diaz KO'd Robbie Lawler, which I want to talk about here in a second. But when Michael Bisping shut the English count up and then gave him one for the road by diving on top of him with a little bit of a forearm smash, I felt like it was a blow for all of America.
It was a blow for you.
Yeah, take Bisping and your tea and your stupid king and stick it up your crumpet.
It was one of the more brutal knockouts you're going to see, because basically Bisping is unconscious from the first shot, laying flat on his back. But before the ref could jump in, Henderson is in the air with the H-bomb cocked for a little send you home, for a little kiss you goodbye. Yeah. I mean, Bisping didn't feel the second one. He was already unconscious, but he couldn't wait to unload another one. Like you, he didn't like Bisping. There was a lot of heat between those two, and he really took it out on him.
It was fantastic. And Bisping talking about, he's got that big right hand, and I don't know if he's going to land that big right hand.
He landed 2 of them.
Yeah, right in your mug. And Bisping somehow now is a champion. The part that I'm worried is that if Bisping wins this fight and does his typical retreating counter-strike, beat you on points but can't knock you out sort of strategy, it would kind of wash the taste out from that first one where you got owned by an American Olympian.
You know what? I think you have hope, though, because I think I could see Bisping buying into, I've got big punching power. I've been telling all of you. You saw me knock out Luke Rockhold, and I'll show you again. Like, he's going to want to prove that was not a fluke. So maybe he will be foolish enough to stand in the box and trade with Henderson. I think you've got hope there because I think he's got a little more belief. Listen, you land the perfect shot. You could land a shot on me and knock me out. You hit me in the right spot. Aaron, same thing. It's all about timing and where it lands.
I don't know about that, Bob.
I'm telling you.
I don't know.
It's all about timing and where it lands. So I think he did a beautiful job. I give him all the credit in the world for knocking out Rockhold. But if all of a sudden he starts buying into, see, I told you, I can punt, I can bang. That might be exactly what Dan Henderson needs.
Now, you say that. I would say if you stood hands behind your back and just chin out and gave me one shot, I don't think I could do it.
I think you could.
Maybe like if a lightning bolt hit me and I got 1.21 gigawatts surging through me.
It's not even about power. It's about timing. It's about, you heard Conor McGregor talk about it in the Jose Aldo fight. He didn't load up. He didn't just throw this heaving shot left hand. It was timing. Guy was coming in, hit him right on the point of the chin. It was just, it landed perfectly. Timing and speed is just as effective as absolute power.
Do you think that's what happened with Woodley and
Robbie
Lawler?
Yeah, I think you caught him right on the point of the chin. That's the weak spot. I mean, and it's not even about, people like to talk about fighters that get knocked out and go, guy's weak. He's soft. He can't take a punch. They have no say in the matter. No. You get hit in the right spot, your body's going to do what it's going to do, and you can't control it. I've been buzzed before. I've gotten clipped where it was a jab, but I got hit in the right spot, and I felt my knees kind of go, and I'm looking around like, what the hell just happened? You know, but I've been hit with shots that hurt much more, but it didn't wobble me. You know, this is just in sparring, and, you know, you felt the force of the punch, like, that kind of hurt, but I wasn't dazed or buckled. But I got buckled from a jab because it hit me in the right spot as I was coming forward. And throw it hard, just threw it fast, landed right in the right spot. And I think that's probably what happened to Lawler, is he got hit right on the point of the chin. It was early in the fight. Woodley is a powerful guy. So it's going to come with some force. But the timing was perfect. Hit him with his hands down, got him right on the chin. There's no – again, you're out of say-so. Your body's going to do what it's going to do.
It's kind of one of those things where somebody hits your reset button. And your computer's now going to power down, and we're not sure when it's going to boot back up. Yeah. You've just called IT, and they've come down and said, just go ahead and hit Control-Alt-Delete.
They call it time traveling.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, you're up. Next thing you know, people are all around you going, you okay? And you're like, what just happened? Wait, what happened the last minute? I lost the last minute. You just traveled in time.
Is that why Randy Couture said it was a unique feeling when he got knocked out for the first time by Chuck Liddell? Because that was his description to me, and I was like, that's a really weird way to describe getting knocked out. Just, it was a unique experience.
Well, you're disoriented. You don't really know. That's why you see so many fighters getting up going, I'm fine. What are you talking about? I'm okay. They have no idea what happened. They don't recollect that, oh, yeah, that's right. I saw that right hand, and here I am. When you're out, it's different from being dazed. When you're out, when you see those guys fall and they don't even put the hands down to brace their fall, they just land on the face. Those are the guys that wake up going, I'm fine. What do you mean? I'm fine. And Robbie kind of did that for a minute. Robbie kind of, if you remember looking at that, he kind of stood up and he looked like he was arguing with the people around him. You know, there's that uncertainty, that cloudiness of you don't know what just happened.
I remember the description, and I think it was Joe Rogan was talking about it after Chael Sonnen lost to Anderson Silva the first time. Not when he did the goofy spinning back fist thing in the second fight.
Right.
But after the first one where he did get choked out and talking about, Chael's protesting and saying he didn't. And Rogan saying, if you've never been in that situation where you're being choked out and in the midst of maybe going unconscious, how disorienting and strange that is, that it's not your full rational self. And to sort of apply those standards of, well, I would never do that, or you have no idea because of the level of just demand that they're making on their body.
It is a weird feeling because I've been close in a triangle position where I thought I could fight it. I think I could fight my way out. And then all of a sudden the screen starts shrinking on me. Like it starts getting dark. And I don't even really remember. I tapped at the last second. My partner's like, you all right? And I was kind of foggy for just a quick second. Little stars going on. Like, wow, that was close. I didn't realize I was that close to going out. I thought I had time to defend and try to work my way out of it. And all of a sudden it was like just a TV screen shrinking on you, getting a little smaller, and then you're going to go dark.
So it's like a TV show ending, like one of those Looney Tunes cartoons?
It's just kind of picturing like an old school, like when somebody shuts off the TV and the screen the picture shrinks into nothing. That's kind of the feeling. Is just everything, your periphery kind of starts to disappear. It gets a little darker, a little smaller, and you're looking down a tunnel. I mean, it is an odd feeling. It is very disorienting, and you don't know it's coming that quick, especially in a choke. You're cutting off blood to the brain. The carotid arteries are being smashed essentially in a triangle choke. You can still breathe. It's not a breathing choke. It's not a I can't breathe. It's just all of a sudden you're going dark.
Was this the loop choke that Carlos put you in? And
no, that
changed?
one hurt. that was
physical pain.
That one, yeah. I mean, that was one you just tap immediately, and I didn't expect it. And yeah, it's kind of smashed my Adam's apple.
Changed the way you talked for like a week.
It changed the way I swallowed. It changed the way. Yeah, he did it. It was kind of, I thought he did it hard. He said he didn't do it that hard, so maybe it just doesn't take that much. Either I'm a sissy or it just doesn't take much.
I'm gonna go with that's not you being a sissy. That's really funny. I didn't do it hard.
That's what he said. Because I was like, "Dang, what the hell was that?" And he's like, "Oh, come on, you'll be in a baby." I said, and then I saw him like the next day I trained. I said, "Man, my throat kind of hurts when I swallow." And he's like, Bob, come on, Bob. Bob, come on. I did not do it that hard, Bob. You know, I did not hurt you, Bob. It's like, yeah, you kind of did. It kind of hurt. But I did it to Brock Heward as well. I was showing him a guillotine choke. Yeah. He wanted me to show him, and then he said he couldn't swallow right for a week. And I didn't do it hard on him, I didn't think. But it's just a really sensitive area. But that's a different choke than cutting off the blood to the brain with the triangle choke.
Now, Did Brock bend down and let you, like he put himself in position?
I got him like in a tie clinch, brought his head down and just kind of cinched it up a little bit just for a couple seconds. And then he sat up, ow. And he was touching his Adam's apple. You could tell it hurt a lot. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just put a little bit on it. And he said, yeah. Now he always talks about, yeah, that time you hurt my throat for a week when you were showing me that choke.
He's kind of he likes to play the victim though. That's one of Brock's. Jim Moore likes to play the innocent bystander who swings at your knee,
just throwing grenades at you, and then when you respond, he's like, I don't understand why you're doing that to me.
And Brock likes to be the poor, unfortunate, unwitting victim of people's aggression.
Right. He asked me to show him. I didn't crank it on him. I wasn't sparring with him the way Carlos did to me. We were sparring, and he just cranked my head.
Come on, Bob. I didn't do it hard.
Oh, come on, Bob. Did not hurt. Yeah, I did. I did. I'm on soft foods, liquids.
We will be talking, hopefully, in the weeks to come. It didn't work out this week. Chris Lieben, who is a retired fighter, former fighter, and actually one of the guys, he's probably, in some ways, the fighter that first really got me into the UFC because I followed him around for about a month and a half and wrote about him. When you hear his voice has changed based on a choke he received. Like you'll hear
right?
It's really raspy, and it was not that way 10 years ago. Now, Chris hasn't lived the cleanest lifestyle, and he'll tell us all about that, but he said that it was actually the choke that did it. And he had a silly approach to things. He would decide at different points, screw it, I'm not going to tap, and get choked unconscious.
Right.
Which is not advisable in any sort of school. It's kind of futility that it was there.
I don't get into the whole macho, hey, you go out. You don't tap, you go out. I'm like, come on, man. That's survival instincts that kick in at some point. I think the decision making leaves at some point where your body again will take over and you'll tap. And then you've seen others like Holly Holm against Miesha Tate where she's kind of flailing awkwardly as she's going dark. You see her legs moving weird and her arms moving weird, and then she's out, and she gets a lot of credit for that. The result is the same.
Correct.
The result is the same. So I don't really get the level of honor that people put on fighters that just go dark.
The other
thing, what I mean? Yeah. To me, I get it. Okay, he's tough. He didn't tap. Okay, he still got choked out. He's still unconscious. It's the same result. So I don't get, people ripped on Conor McGregor for tapping to Nate Diaz. Instead of going, a real man would have gone, really? He was in the same position. He lost either way.
It's in my mind, it's like chess. It's like a checkmate. Do you really want to go through the exercise here of watching me finish it off? And except in fighting, there's real world consequences, whether it's a arm bar or whether there's a danger that you're putting your body in. If you're in a certain position, and any person that's a grappler knows and understands exactly what's going to happen if this string plays out.
Well, you needn't go any further than Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate. I mean, I give Miesha Tate all the credit in the world for being tough as nails, but her arm looked like it was made of silly putty, and it was unnecessary. She wasn't getting out of the position. The arm, the elbow hyperextend. I mean, it got to a point where there was no tension on it anymore, and Ronda's looking at the ref like, What do you want me to do here? This thing's flopping around. I mean, I give you all the credit in the world. You're tough. You still lost, and you took damage you probably didn't need to take because the result is ultimately the same.
Well, we're about to talk to a guy who's known for inflicting damage with a liver punch.
Yeah, Lord of the Liver Kick.
Yeah. Bas Rutten, the Dutch assassin. I'm not sure what his nickname is. Everybody
El
just
Guapo.
knows him. El Guapo
Yeah.
is what he is. Everybody knows him as Bas. And we should reveal this. I wasn't actually in the interview, which you'll hear, but
you were.
Yeah. In my own special way.
We made it work.
Yeah. Bas is pretty funny, though.
He's got a great sense of humor, and he loves the sport, and he just loves to talk about it, which is great. I mean, he's a UFC Hall of Famer. He's an accomplished mixed martial artist. He's a legend in the sport, and he gets it, right? He's been in Hollywood. He's been in movies, so he kind of gets the fact that, hey, man, these guys are talking to me. I need to come with it. I need to come. And he's always got a sense of humor and energy. It's fun.
Well, it's going to be really fun. He's going to join us next here on Fight and MMA Podcast.
Welcome in, everybody. It is what we do every week. It is time to get in the cage here on our beautiful MMA podcast. And who better to bring in than a man who was just in town? I think we can still feel his presence here in the city of Seattle. He is the Lord of the Liver Kick. He is El Guapo, the one, the only Hall of Famer that is Bas Rutten is with us. Bas, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. It's starting to cool down a little bit here in California, and we'll leave. We will go to Maui in Hawaii. Going to have a lot of fun.
Nice. Hey, you were just in town for the World Series of Fighting. You and our buddy Kenny Rice, you guys were on the call. Interesting event. I'm curious, what was your takeaway? The big event, I mean, the big fight on that card for a lot of people here was the brothers fighting each other, and Phoenix Jones and Carlos Fodor fighting each other. The fight itself, Bas, I thought was fairly boring. It was pretty much Carlos in side control and Ben doing his best to try to get up. But just the idea of two brothers, even though they're adopted and all of that, what did you think of two guys like that fighting each other?
You know, before with the interviews, they were very, well, at least Phoenix, so to say, Ben, it was very funny in his interviews. You know, they didn't like it, but then he didn't like it, but he was making fun of things. And then when Joey was interviewing us, suddenly he became emotional. You know, that threw me up. I go, whoa, you know, this is really serious right now. And then at that moment, you start thinking about it. And then you go, yeah, against the brother. I mean, you got only one brother. You know, how is it going to go for the rest of their lives now? You know, we don't really know. There was a lot of rumors what happened between the both of them, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. We fighting at home, I'd rather do that than getting a paycheck. Me and my brother, they fought a lot. We fought a lot as well. But that was when we were very young, thankfully, not now in that age.
You know, we had Phoenix Jones in studio, and we were talking to him, and he was very emotional then. He wasn't crying or anything, but he was very hyped up, and you could tell he's very animated about it. And I asked him about that because often you hear, especially in boxing, that if you can get your opponent mad, that's what you want, because then game plan goes out the window. Technique might go out the window. They're just fighting on emotion and anger. And that seemed like it could be counterproductive, and I feel like it was for him that he got a little tired. He started throwing haymakers, and just there didn't seem to be much of a game plan in the whole thing. And it felt like he was fighting on emotion, whereas Carlos was kind of just sticking to what he does. I'm going to take him down. I'm just going to hold him down.
Exactly, it's exactly what you said. I said it in the opening. You know, especially when you got all emotional, then I go, "Ooh, this is going to affect him." I think in the fight, you know, once you really try to hurt your opponent, you start loading up, and loading up is giving away what you're going to do, because, well, you're loading up and they can see it, so now they can counter it. And you're absolutely right. I truly believe that emotions were not favoring him that night.
You know, you had such a long career. You're a guy that's in the UFC Hall of Fame. You've had a lot of fights under your belt, Bas. Was there ever a fight where you lost your composure, or you lost your temper and started fighting on emotion? Yeah,
I did. A fight against Kengo Watanabe. It was a fight I was going to face. Officially, I was going to face Randy Couture in October at that time, so that was set. And then Pancras asked me if I wanted to do a fight in September. And because, you know, they were losing, fans, apparently, and they said they were hoping that I could help them. And, of course, since I was always happy, I said, yeah, I can do it. I said, but I don't want to fight like a top guy now, because I'm going to face Randy Couture, and if I get injured in this fight, you know, it's not going to be good for me. I have to say no to the UFC. So they said, no, don't worry about it. We'll pick a fighter. No. And then when I arrived, I didn't know the guy. And then the day before the fight, Guy Metzger comes to me, and we were walking on the street, and he goes, they trained this guy for you, right? Like for a year and a half straight, especially to fight you. And I go, excuse me? He said, yeah, man. They made a whole comic out of it, a comic book out of it. I actually have that comic book now. And I go, no way. So that's when I got angry. And I wanted to go in the fight submitting him, but now, because I didn't want to hurt my hands, but now I said, I'm going to knock him out now. And when you see the fight, I'm really wild. It's technically it's not good. I knock him out, but it's sloppy because I'm angry.
Yeah, it just seems to go against everything you ever hear in fighting. Hey, Bas, I'm curious, since we last spoke, a lot has happened in the world of the UFC. They've been sold for $4 billion, which is a crazy story to think these guys invested $2 million in the beginning, the Fertitta brothers, and now $4 billion later, it's being sold. What do you think the impact is going to be? I've had a lot of people ask me, what's going to change? What are we going to see? And I think as a fan, I'm not sure we're going to see anything that looks different. Maybe fighter contracts, once they expire, maybe they'll be in a better bargaining position, perhaps. Maybe they'll pay fighters more when their contracts are up. But I'm curious what differences you think you're going to see with new owners of the UFC.
Well, I think the Reebok deal is going to be the end of it. I think in 2017, or they're going to come back with a complete different new revamped deal. But that's just been a thorn in the eye for all the fighters. You hear it all the time. So that probably, maybe the TV channel is going to change. I don't know about that because they have so much power, they have William Morris, and that they can start shopping, maybe ESPN or whatever, or Fox, big time Fox. I don't know. So something like that, I think. But the biggest thing is, what's going to happen is celebrity endorsements. People go like, yeah, really? That's already happening. No, it's not. It's not. When you hear these stories that these celebrities get paid sometimes $100,000, and I have crazy stories, like $1 million to put a tweet out, for a certain product. I think once, guys like Dwayne Johnson and more of these guys who have a good, enormous following, they start tweeting, man, I can't wait for the UFC tonight. It will get people interested who never bought the UFC before, saying, hey, wait a minute, they sold it for $4 billion. Maybe it's not what I think it is. Maybe I should check it out. And one of MMA is one of those things that if you do check it out, I think 90% of the people who checks it out, will keep on checking it out because it's a very addicting sport. It's a real sport. In the beginning, the first few fights, a little bit, you're freaking out. It's like my brother's sister-in-law. She went to a Thai boxing match, and where I had the main event, and she was freaking out the first fight, and at the end she was screaming, "Rip his head off!" And she wanted. So people change. It's a good outlet for people. I always compared it all the way in the beginning, like with Rollerball. You remember that movie,
yeah.
Rollerball?
Yes.
All the violence is gone. The only violence is going to be, and it's not. I shouldn't say violence because I don't see fighting as violence at all. But it's an outlet for people. They go there, and that's where they can get rid of their anger, whatever they have. They scream it out, and then they never mix again.
Now, to somebody that doesn't watch MMA or boxing or any of that, when they hear you say, "Well, I don't think fighting is violent at all," what would be your explanation to them?
It's for me, the guy is exactly the same as me shooting hoops for basketball against another guy. We're just seeing who's better. And it's really, and like we just talked about it a few questions ago, anger, once anger gets involved, the whole fight game is going down the drain. Just loading up, everything goes wrong. Fighting is not a sport about anger. It's about being calculated, calm, precise, and knowing, picking your shots and knowing what you're doing. And if anger gets into your mind, that clouds everything. So it's really bad. Sometimes when I fought a lot of friends, like Frank Shamrock, Guy Metzger, Kostaka, Maurice Smith. I knew all these guys personally, and there's not one moment of violence. Sometimes, of course, there's this guy that really does something bad to you, and then you get angry, but you have to go and try to control it. But that's in every sport. You have it in ice hockey. Let's talk about that, right?
Right.
They start beating the crap out of each other. So, you have it in every sport, but officially, fighting is absolutely not violent.
Hey, Bas, how big is the talent gap between UFC, Bellator, World Series of Fighting, ONE FC, all of these promotions out there, because I think most people look at the UFC as that's the top of the heap. That would be the NFL, and then they look at Bellator, World Series of Fighting, these other promotions as not necessarily minor leagues, but they look at them in terms of talent as a step down. But often when you watch a Bellator card or a World Series of Fighting card, you're seeing some incredibly talented guys. And I'm wondering if you think there's a very big gap in talent between these promotions.
No, I think the talent, the top talent, that's all very close together. But I do believe that the UFC has more talent. There is less talent in the other organization. I mean, amount of talent. That's what I mean. So you still have like top 10 guys there, but there's just less of them than in the UFC. Has a much bigger roster. Plus, every fighter on every planet wants to fight in the UFC. So then automatically, you're going to have the more talented people. And the more, again, I mean the quantity, not the person itself being talented, because that talent is across the board.
Now, Bas, I do this show with a goofy co-host who couldn't make it in for the interview, but he is such a huge fan of yours. He said, Bob, please let me record some questions. I've got to ask Bas some questions. So I'm going to let this dope ask you a question. We're going to play it for you, and you feel free to answer however you feel, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Thank you very much, Bob. You're such a pro on the mic that maybe people won't realize that I'm not actually in the room, but an opportunity to talk to Bas Rutten, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who embodies the expression, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. Bas, this is awesome to talk to you. I'm curious your perspective on title holders in the UFC. We've seen a lot of turnover at the top of the promotion, most recently Tyron Woodley winning the belt from Robbie Lawler. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, is it a detriment to the promotion to not have long-tenured champions like George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, guys that the promotion really backed? Is it a problem to have a lot of turnover at the top?
I think it's good. I believe it's good to have until a new guy comes and going to keep it for like 5 times. That's what I think, because now people can really see it is not that easy. I've always been saying, winning the title is cool. Defending the title, now we're talking. And if you can defend it, and you can defend it again, then you say, okay, now that's the real champion. So now it's just going to, if it's passed on, it holds a value? Of course it holds value. You still beat the guy, but, you want to be a guy who defends it a couple of times. And I think that will happen again. It's just that one guy needs to be there. We got Stephen Thompson, right? He's coming in now. Mm-hmm. And for what I understand, actually, what I heard today is that Tyron Woodley might fight George St. Pierre now. So George St. Pierre is going to come back. I hope that's going to be true.
Would you want to see him jump right in with Woodley? I mean, as long as and I love George St. Pierre as well, and I hope he does come back, but if you were managing him, Bas, would you tell him, hey, let's get you some tune-up fights, let's get you back and used to competing at this level, or would you just throw him right in there?
Yeah, I would throw him right in there. And for the reason is that, he's going to perform anyway. This guy didn't stop training. He kept on training. He's in shape. He's freaking George St. Pierre, man. So he's really good. His wrestling stays really good. Everything. When you put him against I think he will have more pressure fighting a guy with less name than to fight the top guy, because he's not allowed to lose to a guy with a lesser name. And that after a long time back can give you a lot of pressure. For instance, my last fight, I was going to fight Kimo Leopoldo, and that would be a better name for me but then he got tested positive and I got a last minute replacement. And this was a guy who was not even in the top 10. Or, I know, Kimo also not, but I mean, he didn't have a lot of fights. He had a hard head, just beat Tom Fry, so that was a good thing. But still, I was not allowed. Even a cut could make me lose already. And then I have a loss against somebody who's not high ranked. So there was more pressure going in. I'm good with dealing with pressure, so it was not so bad for me. But I can understand that other fighters, if you're not, if you don't simplify fighting, that's what I do in my mind always. I simplify it for myself, and then it takes everything away, all the nerves away. But if you can't do that, then fighting a not as good person is much more pressure for you.
Hey, you just brought up he tested positive, and that seems to be such a big story now, Bas. We're seeing in big names too. I mean, John Jones, who may be one of the greatest ever to step in that cage, who's never actually been beaten, even though he got the disqualification against Matt Hamill. And then we saw it with Brock Lesnar, which I don't think anybody was surprised by that one. And then we saw Chad Mendez. When you hear these guys, and Brock hasn't really said anything in the way of an excuse. John Jones was up there crying, saying, I can't even pronounce what they say I tested dirty for. I've been outspoken. I would never do this. And Chad Mendez saying, hey, I was using something for psoriasis, for my skin condition. When you listen to this as a former fighter, and you're inside more than anybody, do you believe any of these excuses? Do you believe that somebody accidentally took something, or do you believe there was actual intent to gain a competitive advantage?
Well, look at Mendez, right? Mendez, if he produces, he says, here, this is the cream. Please check this cream out. And they check the cream out, it's in there. Then I say, you should get a pass, just like Yoel Romero had, because he actually came with the product. He says, this is what I took. It was not on the label. They tested it, and it was indeed, it was in there. So, but the problem with Jones is that Jones has the same manager as just Yoel Romero. So 6 months ago, in April, less than 6 months ago, he had to go through the Athletic Commission, all the crap through with the product, and his manager was by his side, same manager as John Jones. And then John Jones gets tested positive for something like that as well. And I go, well, this camp is not talking. I know that Yoel Romero and John Jones trained together for the fight against OSP. So, you would think that during those training camps, you're going to go eat and you're going to, oh, what a nightmare, man, that stuff I took, and please watch out, that never happens to you. You would think conversations like that would happen, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a big deal. And if you look at John Jones, he's losing over $10 million for a fight. So it's a pretty big deal. And for his manager as well, because he gets 10% of that. So you would think that the manager puts everybody together and says, listen, we have this problem with Yoel Romero. Let's make sure that we go to the website, USADA website, and we check out what you can take, because everything is listed on that website, and those products you're only going to take. But for some reason that didn't happen, I guess, and he tested positive. So then you start thinking. Now you go like, okay, is this true or is this not true? And I feel bad, because it could be very much 100% truth. But since all the things he had in the past, the three things that happened, the drinking, the drugs, people now, and the hit and run, now people are going to go, no, wait a minute. Yeah, but I was cleaning up myself. Yeah, but, this is weird. With the whole Yoel Romero story and the management saying, you see, so it's a shame. It's really a shame. I truly believe there were real tears. I really hope so, because like I said, I'm a huge John Jones fan, and if there's somebody on the planet who wants him to become that man, I wish I could talk to him saying, dude, you can go down in history as the best guy ever. And if you, on top of that, represent yourself as a good person outside, also be a role model to all this, man, you go down in history. I mean, they will know you in 200 years from now. It's a big thing, and I think every fighter would like that, but sometimes they simply don't think.
Couldn't agree with you more. Hey, boss, before we let you go, I'm going to let my goofy co-host ask you one more question. Here it is.
Now, I know Bas gets a lot of hard-hitting MMA questions, and whether it's asking whether he was worried that he might have actually beaten Masakatsu Funaki to death in 1996 in what was absolutely an amazing fight, or different perspectives on the UFC, I'm trying to ask him the toughest question I can think of, which is this. Who's the better-looking bald man, Bas? Is it you or Dana White?
Oh, let me just say that I'm the better-looking bald guy, the fighter, and he's the owner of of a giant mixed martial arts organization. That was a tough one, though. Yeah, I had 20 bullets there.
Yeah, there you go. But you handled it like a champ, Bas, as you always do.
Very political answer.
That's right.
If everybody wins. There's the whole thing that everybody in school is doing. Everybody gets the prize. It's such a BS.
That's great. Hey, Bas, as I always tell you, man, it is fun to talk to you. I always appreciate you jumping on the show with us and cutting out some time with us. And by the way, everybody should be watching Inside MMA every Friday on Access TV. Bas Rutten along with Mauro Ranallo and Ron Kruk. You guys do such a great job. And my buddy Kenny Rice is on there at times as well. So check that out every Friday, Access TV. Bas, the body action system, I think, is on its way to my house as well. I'm going to be one of those people working out on that as well. So hopefully that's...
You're going to love that thing. You're going to love that thing. And use the workouts that come with it. And then in about a month from now, there's 18 new workouts coming. There's audio workouts with my voice instructing you. Good. You're going to love that. It's the best combination. The punching and the combinations that I throw out really fast. And you're doing it on the body action system.
Well, give everybody the website where they can check it out for themselves.
bodyactionsystem.com. Boom.
There you go.
B-A-S. See it? Notice that? Body Action System. Oh, man, that's awesome.
That's clever. That is clever stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, boss, the best to you, my friend. We appreciate it very much and hope to talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, my friend. Take care, Bob.
MMA is fun because of how many characters are in it. I've always thought that today's professional athletes in the NFL and Major League Baseball, they're corporate entities almost. And unless your name's Michael Bennett, you're sort of programmed to give the least offensive answer possible. Yeah. I love the characters that fighters are, and Bas Rutten is one of the great characters in the sport.
He really is. You know, what's funny is you followed this sport before I did. Right, I might have been partaking in boxing and things like that, but I wasn't really tuned into who Bas Rutten was until he was done fighting. So I've kind of gone in reverse and looked at some of the fights with you and some of his highlights, and I've talked to him a bunch. But he is so I don't know what he was like during his fighting days, if he was still that guy, or if he's changed since he's now retired, which you see with a lot of players, right, when they have that freedom. But you're right, he's a great character. I have to make a bold admission here. I'm starting to warm up to your Diaz guys. I'm starting to. I watched Nate Diaz on Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy, first of all, I love that the exposure of MMA and these fighters is reaching mainstream level. That Jimmy Kimmel and all these late night shows are bringing on, you know, whether it's Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey or now the Diaz brothers are doing late night TV, and they did a great bit with him, and he was actually kind of funny. I still think he's a stump, but he's there's a charm to him, I guess, where I kind of get it. As I was watching him, I'm thinking, I kind of get why Danny likes him.
Well, it's a funny. I've loved Nick Diaz probably from the point when I started watching it. He's been one of my favorite fighters. Now, there's things that I really don't like about him. I don't like that when his fights go to a decision, which they often do, that he constantly complains about it. I don't like how he reacts to losses.
Right.
I love the way he fights, and that probably goes back to his fight against Robbie Lawler. He's really young. It's more than 10 years ago now. I think it's 12 years.
I think he was the last guy to stop Robbie Lawler with punches before Tyron Woodley.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they go in there, and Rogan's talked about this, that Diaz is in the ring, and he's like just yelling, "Stockton!" and then cursing it, "Stockton!" And he's known for open hand slapping opponents.
Yeah.
The Stockton slap.
Yeah.
Which, right, it makes no sense. Like, you can hit the guy in the fist with your fist, but he finds it more to just open hand slap the side of his head.
I think it's like just disdain, disrespect.
I could punch you, but instead I'm going to slap you.
Yeah, yeah.
And with Lawler, it's the only time I've ever seen this happen. The ref told Diaz to stop trash talking, like in the middle of the fight. And because he's cursing at him, and he gets Lawler really mad at one point where he stings Lawler. Lawler comes back and hits him and waves his arms, and then Diaz follows up. It's a great fight. And just the sort of you talk about different athlete archetypes that you like. I love punks. I really do.
You've made that clear.
Yeah, I
in all sports.
Marshall Henderson at Ole Miss. I love the trash talking punk ass sneer on his face, and the Diaz brothers
epitomize that.
They're that to the hilt.
But it's interesting to see Nate, and by the way, Nick, there's news around him is his suspension is up, so he's now eligible to fight, and immediately comes out and says, "I'm the guy to beat." He's got double-digit losses. I mean, he's by no means the greatest ever. He's one of the great characters, and he is entertaining because you know he's just going to talk smack in the ring. He's going to lay down and do all kinds of crazy things in there to try to antagonize his opponent. But his brother is in my mind surpassing him. The Conor McGregor thing couldn't have been bigger, couldn't have been better for him. And Conor's right in saying, "You won the lottery. You know it. I know it. With that fight, you won the lottery." He's absolutely right. Nate Diaz is in a position to make more money than he ever dreamed of making. His profile is bigger than it ever would have been had he not won that fight. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel probably had no idea who Nate Diaz was. I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't know what kind of fan he is of MMA. But he certainly wasn't inviting him to be on the show and be part of a bit that they did, a man on the street type thing with Nate Diaz prior to that fight.
What's it called? What's Up with Nate Diaz?
I think so.
Somebody said, "What's up?"
Did you see the bit?
Yes.
So they had people on the street talking smack about Nate Diaz. Hey, what do you think about the rematch of Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz? And they found guys that said, oh, Conor's going to knock him out. Nate Diaz got lucky, whatever they were saying. They're kind of talking smack. And then Nate Diaz would come walking out this door and stand next to him. And the reaction from people was, oh, hey, it's Nate Diaz. Hey, I like this guy too, though. He's a good guy. It was funny to see, and Nate's kind of mean mug, and then he'd smile. And he came off well in that bit. As I watched it, I kind of found myself going, I guess I kind of like him a little bit.
Like when Nick Diaz said, I think it was KJ Noons, it was in the promotion over in Hawaii. He told KJ Noons, don't be scared, homie.
Yeah. And that has lived on forever. That has become a catchphrase.
It's the funniest. Don't be scared, homie.
Yeah. There's shirts now that say don't be scared, homie. Everybody uses that now. It's just become part of the vernacular. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz worming their way. You mentioned Conor McGregor. That fight is coming up. That's the big next ticket on the card. Tyron Woodley, as soon as he wins the title, basically says that he wants to fight either George St. Pierre or Nick Diaz, that Diaz has become that payday. It's really strange that you've got two guys that have not – Nick's never held a title in the UFC. Nate is a fighter who he won the Ultimate Fighter, and he's been a significant – figure, but it's not like he's been a long-standing title holder, yet they've become, it kind of shows that difference between, it's what will draw, and those two guys do draw.
Well, and that's taking a page out of Conor's book. Right now, Conor was winning. Conor has a title, but he's also a guy that understood the idea of marketing, and let me be the character. Chael Sonnen, same guy. Chael Sonnen, good fighter, not an elite fighter. He's an elite wrestler, but he wasn't a world beater. But the way he talked, if you listen to him, he was the champ. Nobody could even how dare they even question his ability or even think to get in the cage with him, and he got people buying into that. And Conor took it to the next level, and I think the Diaz brothers are similar. They do it differently, but they're characters. They're building their reputation and their popularity more on their personalities and their conduct in the cage. They're good fighters. They're very good fighters. But as you just point out, they're not champions. They're not anybody that's thrown into the conversation of, all-time greatest, John Jones, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre. The Diaz brothers are not mentioned in that conversation.
Nick Diaz is the only person I know of who's gotten in a fight in the hospital after a fight.
Right. And that just fits with their storyline. It fits with their character.
Joe Diesel Riggs, they fought. Riggs gets the decision, and they fought again at the hospital. And I think what you hear Bob saying is that the Diaz brothers are marketing geniuses, that they've really put a lot of foresight and thought.
It feels weird to attach the word genius to those guys. Anybody, with all due respect. And you know what, if they showed up in this room, I'd probably be like one of the guys on the street, like, oh, hey, I like you too. You're great. No, you are smart.
It is. They are funny characters. Tyron Woodley, it's the 7th title change we've seen in the UFC this year, which is really remarkable. Do you start to worry that you don't have those long tenured champions?
I don't. I kind of go back and forth on this as to whether they need it. I get the appeal of a champion defending. Who's going to be the guy to beat him? Who can finally beat John Jones? Who can finally beat George St. Pierre? What have you? I get the appeal to that. Ronda Rousey. Ronda was, she was almost too dominant to where I think you were going to suffer from Tyson syndrome, where people would just go, what am I going to watch for? It's going to be 90 seconds. Am I going to pay for 90 seconds or a minute of this? We know what's going to happen. So I think there's a danger to somebody being too dominant. I don't know that it's a bad thing, though, that titles are switching hands, because it gives some level of intrigue. Like, all right, everybody's beatable. Who's going to be the next one? You've seen it in the women's division. I mean, Ronda was killing everybody. Nobody could beat her. Then Holly beats her. Holly loses in her first defense to Miesha Tate. Miesha loses in her first defense. We'll see what Amanda Nunes does, but it's just I don't know that it's a bad thing, because it keeps a lot of names in the spotlight, as opposed to one huge name and the victim, right? That's kind of how it became with Ronda Rousey, and to a lesser extent John Jones, even though there were some big names. He was mowing through people. So it got to a point where you kind of went, all right, maybe this guy will give him a challenge. Maybe this will be the guy that will actually do something. But there was some level of, I don't know if he just became a little numb to it, as opposed to, all right, seeing that somebody's vulnerable, they can be beat, I think adds some anticipation and excitement to it.
You look at the different weight classes. Heavyweight was this way. It's really been this way almost forever, since Brock Lesnar was kind of dethroned, where it just hopped champions. Before John Jones, the light heavyweight category was like that. You had very few guys stringing together defenses when you had Lyoto Machida and all the different players. I guess the difference now is that that's true at almost all of the weight classifications. I mean, the changes that you've seen, Conor McGregor beating Jose Aldo, Alvarez beating Dos Anjos, who himself had beaten Benson Henderson. Your longest tenured champion right now, John Jones doesn't have the belt, so he's not the champion, even though he's never lost. You've had there's no person like Anderson Silva or like George St. Pierre that had multiple year runs at the top of their weight class.
Don't forget our guy. Don't forget our guy in the backyard here, Demetrius Johnson.
Oh, that's true. That's
Demetrius
actually a really
Johnson
good point.
has a lot of title defenses, and he's kind of suffering from what we were just talking about. Is people are wondering, all right, he's already beaten John Dodson twice. He's already beaten Moraga. He's already beaten all these guys that are supposed to be, that's the guy to beat him. He's got the style to beat him. You know, he's a wrestler. He's an Olympic wrestler. I mean, he's just manhandling everybody, and he is making it look easier and easier and easier. And I think two things work against him. The weight division, there's still apprehension from people that don't want to see 125-pound guys fight. You know, and as DJ will say, he'll tell you, you know, it's not my fault I'm built like a fifth grader. Yeah, those are his words, you know, that he's the size of a fifth grader, I think is what he says. You know, but he's as dynamic, as powerful, as exciting as any fighter out there. He's amazing, yet he's probably the lone guy that's sustained that title run.
Why do you think guys don't like? Because I'll admit, I'm one of those people. I really respect Demetrius' craft and what he's done, but I don't know if that weight class appeals to me.
Because there aren't a lot of stoppages. I think there's an intrigue to the bigger fighters from 170 up, even 155 up, that it can end on one punch. And you see it often. You know, 4-ounce gloves, it should be happening at any weight. You can end the fight at any moment. Lights can go out. Often with the lighter weight fighters, you know, 125 pounds, more often than not, it's going to be a submission or a decision. You're not going to see big, heavy hitters at that size, even though Demetrius has knocked guys out. We've seen him do it. He does it all. So I think there's just kind of the stereotype, and you saw it in boxing for years, that you'd see a lot of skilled fighters in the lightweights and the featherweights and the bantamweights. Not a lot of knockouts, so the intrigue wasn't there with a Tyson. You know, what's going to happen? He's going to punch somebody's head into the third row, or even cruiserweights or light heavyweights or even middleweights when it was Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. They could still knock people out in a big way. I think the lighter the weight, the fewer the knockouts, so people looked at that as, well, if there's no knockout, it's not exciting, which is flawed, absolutely flawed.
What changed in boxing? Because, I mean, I know people don't like Floyd Mayweather, but he's a classic defensive boxer. He's the richest boxer, and then you got Triple G down in that area too, who is a big puncher. Did there develop a greater appreciation for that?
For defense? I mean, I think Floyd is boring to a lot of people, including me. I can respect what he does. He's a brilliant tactician. He's not a big puncher. He's not going to end many fights in knockouts. Very few of his fights are knockouts. He's just going to kind of sit there and pick and poke and work his way to a lopsided decision, right? He's going to show his skill. He's going to show you how slick he is. Triple G is a guy people love because of what he does. He knocks guys out at 160 pounds. He's not a heavyweight. He's a middleweight. So he's out there knocking people out. He's got tremendous power. That's exciting. It's not exciting to watch Floyd sit there and slip punches, right? He's like Pernell Whitaker used to be. Pernell Whitaker was very similar in that he would stand right in front of you and you couldn't hit him, and people would say, yeah, it's boring. You know, they want to see two guys just trading blows, trading bombs. They don't want to see a tactician. They don't want to see a defensive wizard. So I don't know that it's really changed. I think Floyd's appeal came in the sense of his personality more than what he does is so entertaining to watch. No, you got 1 million people tuning in to watch him lose, hoping he's going to lose. And you got another million that say, I love him, he's the greatest ever, and I want to be one of those guys that said it. So I don't know that his style appeals to many people. It's more about who he is as a person. You either love him or you hate him. You're going to tune in.
So Demetrius should become a bigger jerk? No, we're just kidding.
We talked about that with him. I asked him, do you feel like you need to be more verbose? Do you need to go out there and talk smack and draw attention to yourself? Do you feel like you got to kind of be Chael and Connor and get people to, hey, look over here? And on some level, he agreed. He's like, I get it. He goes, I'm not really that guy, but I understand that you have to figure out how to market yourself. You have to treat this as a business. And I think he started, if you listen to some of the interviews he's had, he's throwing out expletives, and he's such a nice guy. And I think he's really trying to be more edgy, you know, because there is an element of that people are drawn to that is not part of his natural personality.
One of the other things, and Dana White gets criticized for a lot of things. One of the things he deserves a ton of credit for is his promotion of Demetrius Johnson. And that when people have complained about the style of fight or the weight class, he's basically told them, then don't watch our product. If you don't like the way that guy fights, don't watch our product, because that's exactly what I want.
Well, yeah, and you listen to Joe Rogan, who knows his stuff. I mean, whether you love his commentary or don't love it, he knows as much as anybody out there. Every time Demetrius' name comes up, says that's the greatest fighter in the sport, maybe the greatest that's ever participated. Now, I know there's a lot of hyperbole. He says that about a lot of fighters, that the most devastating puncher ever. Could be one of the greatest. He is so consistent with Demetrius Johnson saying he is the best fighter in all of MMA, pound for pound. He says it time and time again, and I think he's right. I think it's Demetrius. I think it's John Jones. John Jones can't get out of his own way, so right now it's Demetrius. I think he's absolutely right. So Dana defends him for good reason, because he knows what he's watching. Joe Rogan praises him because he knows what he's watching.
Well, that's about going to do it for us. My voice is giving out. I don't know if anybody's seen that.
Or heard it.
I feel like I've been victimized by a loop choke.
I didn't even choke you yet.
It's true. Look at how soft I am.
Danny, you're fine. You're not hurt, Danny. You're fine. Come on, Danny.
You didn't do it hard. It's been really fun. We hope you guys are enjoying it. Please subscribe on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter. That's Fight MMA Podcast. We are going to have Demetrius Johnson. He is going to be one of our guests coming up in the near future.
We'll have Demetrius. We'll have Lieben. We'll have my training partner, Anthony Hamilton, who's a UFC heavyweight who just won and signed a fresh new contract.
We're reaching out to Matt Hume out at AMC as well. So hopefully this is going to just keep building momentum. We hope you enjoy it, and we really thank you for listening. We'll see you next week on Fight.
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie.